Hey everyone. So today we are moving on from Shuchi'in Academy Student Council Vice President Kaguya, whose figure was unboxed and reviewed in the previous video upload, to the Council's Secretary, namely Fujiwara Chika from the same Pop-Up Parade series. Chika was obtained brand new from the same local hobby store that I had purchased Kaguya from. And like Kaguya before her, Chika is also dressed in the school uniform with the short sleeves and is striking an iconic pose that I'll touch on more later in this video. Released about 2 months after Kaguya was introduced to the Goodsman Company standard size pop-up parade lineup, Fujiwara Chika is the second of only 2 figures based on the romantic comedy series Kaguya-sama, Love is War that I'm aware of, at least to date. Chika is packaged in the now familiar all-clear plastic box, with visuals of the figure partially hindered only by the clear plastic blisters she's sandwiched in between, as well as the plastic sheet wrappings that I assume are there to prevent paint transfers. Being a first-hand figure bought from a local Goodsman Company partner shop, I'm not expecting any damage or paint fading issues. So let's get started with Chika's unboxing and get a closer look at the figure's details. I'll meet up with you again after fast-forwarding through this unboxing and unwrapping process and resume the running commentary once I'm ready to give her a once-over. For those of you who wish to completely skip this step, please check out the timestamps provided in the description below. Now that we have Chika fully unboxed and laid out on the work mat, let's begin the close-up look of the figure itself and her base. Apart from her iconic pose, which I'll delve into in further detail later on in this video, what immediately stands out for me are the lovely details on her face and head, as well as the existence of color shading on her hair and skin tone. In addition to the iconic black bow tie accessory, Chika's light pink hair has been given darker shades on the fringe and ends, while skin tone shadows were applied below her chin and neck area, as well as on her elbows and palm of her hands. On her leg, shading was applied specifically on areas at the front and back of her knees. One thing that makes Chika's uniform slightly different from Kaguya's is that Chika is wearing white socks versus Kaguya's black ones, while both do have similar brown leather shoes with its inherent details. So that's a quick close-up look at Chika. Next we have the now infamous no-frills base that's identical to the one Kaguya had, i.e. a plain 2-tier white hexagonal base with a metal and plastic pack, both of which connects to the holes on Chika's right foot. It certainly looks to be a straightforward assembly, so I'll just go ahead to attach Chika to the base before we take a good 360 degrees look at the figure. It's my guess that the metal pack bears the brunt of the support responsibility for the figure, while the plastic pack acts more like a guiding connector to ensure the foot is oriented in a certain way. I feel the plastic pack is too short to provide much of a support for the figure. That's Chika attached to the base. What say you we now move on to the next part of the video, which is a full 360 degree view of how she might look when displayed. Being from the same Pop-Up Parade standard size figure series as Kaguya in the last video, Chika isn't really that far off in terms of size or height, also measuring slightly above 17 centimeters. In fact, based on a rough glance, it would seem that both Kaguya and Chika figures are nearly identical in height. This might seem odd to Kaguya-sama Love is War fans, seeing that in terms of both characters' physical attributes, whereby Kaguya is 2 inches taller at 5 feet 2 versus Chika, who is only 5 feet tall. But this discrepancy actually makes sense because if you look closely, Chika is standing on her toes due to her pose. Speaking of which, Chika is seen here in a pose that seems to be inspired by her adorable dance routine as seen in the ending theme of Episode 3 Season 1 if memory serves me. The positioning of both her hands, arms and legs plus the twirl of her skirt is certainly reminiscent of her dance moves. It's a pose that's reflective of Chika's energetic personality and at the very least indicative of dynamic movement, which is always welcome in a figure. Compared to Kaguya, Chika has a much richer and vivid color palette overall, due to the existence of 3 additional hues, i.e. the pinks of her hair, the blues of her eyes, and the peachy hues of her tongue, all of which add variety to the whites, blacks, reds, browns, and skin tones that make up the rest of her color scheme. And as I had highlighted earlier, Chika has paint shading on both her hair and skin tone, in the form of dark pinks on her predominantly light pink hair and orange hues on her skin. Other tonal variations in color can be seen in the various shades of her blue eyes and the rosy blush on her cheeks. Also, as I've come to expect from pop-up parade figures, the likeness factor of the Chika figurine is simply put just excellent. The resemblance to her anime self is conveyed not only through the details on her face, but also in her pose, especially the way she's posing her fingers. Meanwhile, Chika's school uniform, just as it was for Kaguya, is the short white sleeves version. In the anime, both girls have another uniform version, one with long black sleeves, which is not the version you see here, obviously. There is, however, a slight difference to Chika and Kaguya's school uniform that's noticeable when looking at the lower half of both pop-up parade figures, i.e. in the color of their over-the-calf socks, which for Chika is white versus black for Kaguya. Apart from that, and the positioning of her legs, everything else in Chika's lower half is similar to Kaguya, from the sculpt and color of her school shoes to the bare bones hexagonal base. With both Kaguya-sama Love is War pop-up parade figures having an almost identical design concept, you wouldn't be faulted for thinking that Chika should have a similar rating to Kaguya. But there are some key characteristics on the standard size Fujiwara Chika pop-up parade figure that's worth evaluating to see if Chika deserves a better rating in her own right. For starters, Chika has a more varied palette in her figure's color scheme than Kaguya, with the addition of pink, peach and blue, to the red, black, white and browns that's common to both figures. That combined with the existence of color shading or gradation on 3 areas of Chika's figure, on her hair, eyes and skin tone, versus the 2 on Kaguya, i.e. her eyes and skin tone, is a plus for Chika, seeing that her hair covers a significant surface area and is a prominent feature of the figure. Another key difference lies in Chika's pose, which is significantly more dynamic than the one adopted by Kaguya. Although to be fair, Guzma Company is only being true to the character's unique individual disposition. Chika is inherently a more bubbly and energetic figure than Kaguya, who is more reserved in nature. Another perhaps more intangible feature of the Chika figurine also arises from her pose. It's a very Chika-like pose that to me draws inspiration from her popular and heavily memed Chika dance routine that was shown in the end credits. That association and the fact that I personally adore her Chika dance routine means just looking at this figure never fails to bring a smile to my face. Even disregarding what her pose reminds me of, from a neutral's point of view, Chika's positioning of her hands and legs plus the outward twirl of her skirt is a wonderfully dynamic sculpt that feels lively and spirited. Needless to say, the combination of this pose and her facial features make for a figure that scores highly in the likeness factor. With all this in mind, I'm giving the standard size pop-up parade figure of Fujiwara Chika from the Kaguya-sama Love is War series a rating of Diamond or A rank, which is one level higher than Kaguya's rating. If you're a Chika fan, this figure is an absolute must-have, considering its qualities and price point. And despite Chika getting a higher rating than Kaguya did in the previous video, if like me you are a big fan of the Kaguya-sama Love is War series, then there's no getting around it. You just have to get both the Fujiwara Chika and Shinomiya Kaguya pop-up parade figures to ensure your collection looks complete. If you can live with just one, then of course Chika's your girl. Anyway, we have come to the end of this video. I sincerely hope you have enjoyed it and found it informative, especially if you are considering getting this Chika figurine. Please like and subscribe if you did. Until my next upload, be well, be happy, and thanks for watching. Bye.